Da-da-da! What's my good cheer? Welcome, everybody. Let's give YouTube a couple of minutes to get those notifications out. In the meantime, if you've never met me before, you'll get used to this. Hi, I'm Cindy. I explore the inside and the outside, and I'm having a little giggle with myself because, I am committed to my brand. I'm committed to showing up in just those lessons for myself, as we're all making movement, we're all finding it sometimes to be a struggle. And I'm not going to say sometimes, I'm going to say all the time. But some of us handle it a little bit better than others. For the most part, most of us handle it differently than each other. And I think, it's been in my lessons, in the conversations, in the little tidbits that come across my path, this idea of cooperation, in part of my mission statement, that it takes all kinds to make the world. It does. It takes all kinds to make the world. And I hang out with the anthropologists just as much as I hang out with the entrepreneurs. Maybe just as much, maybe more. No. I do love the mindset, only because the mindset is the saving grace, if you want to put it in a comparison, because it really did set me on a path into understanding my entire existence, my entire life, what my purpose was. And we all talk about find your purpose and stuff. And it's just in that creation of the best human being that I can possibly be, that it gives me the lessons, it gives me the characters, the conversations, the adventures, the experiences, right? And it comes across my path, and sometimes I catch it, sometimes I don't. But when I catch it, oh my goodness, you know, and it's not like it just changes one aspect of my understanding, but it's like dominoes. It just kind of like shoots off. Eventually, right? The domino will go off track and the rest of it will crash, but I get a good insight into where I'm at, on that playboard of dominoes. It's the way that I look at it. It is in that foreshadowing. You know, I was taken in a lesson today by a lady, I do believe. I'm just not even thinking who gave me the lesson. And that's the sad part. Sometimes I take these lessons in and I resonate so much with the lesson and not necessarily with the character. You know, a lot of these, I'm not going to sway off too far off the main branch, but a lot of the lessons I take are in the side branches that I take off the main trunk of the tree. And a lot of these people, a lot of these human souls have lessons and experiences that I could never hope to or even want to hope to have. But in their experiences, right, they earned that badge of honor to bring it to the table if they so wanted to bring something that would serve another human soul. And yet they're in characters that, I appreciate what they bring to the table. But it's not like, I'm going to bring them home to meet the parents, or I'm going to allow them to hang out with me on a daily basis because of other aspects of themselves, uh, or even myself in rubbing with them, that they might feel the exact same. More than likely, they're going to feel the exact same way that we're not going to be best buds, right? We are never going to be BFFs. We're not going to be hanging out. We're not going to be raising our children together. I'm not going down that route in this life in any way, in any case, but you know, it doesn't make it so that we are enemies, right? We're different. Just like in the parentage that we get a few chromosomes from this one, a few chromosomes from this one, but we don't get to pick and choose, right? Me and all my sisters are so different. Me and my youngest sister, Carolyn, have blue eyes, but I have a sister with hazel eyes, and I have another sister with dark, dark, dark eyes, like my mom, right? So we don't get to pick and choose those traits that we're going to pick up off of each parent. And this is how I look at it when you bring dynamics together. You know, we talked yesterday about coming from the extremes and me being centered kind of in the middle, having traits of both my parents. But both my parents were in the extremes of their creation of the best human being they possibly could be. And that's the best way that I could say that. So not only am I getting genes from both sets of parents, I believe that I'm getting bits of the extremes, and I'm not getting to pick, right? A lot of the stuff out in the world I don't get, I don't understand, and I'm not interested in it, right? But if I was truly my father's daughter in all aspects, I would have some of those traits, right? And yet I have different traits. I picked up different ones, and they serve me, and they serve me well. And just like with my mother, I tried to pick the very best out of that appetizer platter. But I don't like salmon and sushi and right. So sometimes it's hard pickings. So sometimes it's just in that selection of the one that doesn't taste as yucky, the one that's not going to make you gag in public. That's the best analogy I could come up with that one, right? So this is the way I think that, it's just not in that human aspects that we're picking up traits from our parents as humans, but we're picking up traits in that stage of evolution epigenetically, right? This is the way I think. It takes all kinds to make the world. It's one of my mission statements. And it's one of those things that I put out to the world so that I can meet and interact with dynamic people. And maybe we won't be best friends, right? Maybe we'll never meet. But we can kind of hang out and we can kind of pick through, and it's not always the debris. Sometimes it is the debris that we do that for each other, that we pick through the debris and we find that source, that problem, right? Or maybe it's not us that finds it. Maybe it's that person that we're in cooperation with, right? That we are walking the same path for a little while with, that we appreciate, and yet sometimes we don't kind of get, right? Cindy's kind of quirky, but I might think the same as you. But in those common interests, in those common values, that we can kind of spend some enjoyable time, some introspective, there's a big word for Cindy, time together, that we can hash things out. Well, I can hash things out. You could, if you want. Give me a piece of your mind, because that's what it's about in that cooperation. That when we get to the point where we can trust a little bit, right? And it takes a lot sometimes, especially if you're highly sensitive, if you're empathic, right? That sometimes it's hard to let go and trust. It's one of the reasons why I am vocal about my weaknesses, right? Those places where people could pinch me. And lots of people say, well, like, Cindy, why? Right? They're just going to use it against you. Yes. Right? But if I'm genuine, and those are part of my values, and I let you know what's going to trigger me, what's going to make it so I'm not going to want to hang out with you or touch on those subjects and stuff, right? And if I'm swayed that way, I am going to go right in there and I'm going to tear it apart as to why. And right? And there are insights, like I said, in those dominoes, that will just move me even forward, because I will read into that, right? And that's another trait of being highly sensitive and empathic. It's just in our hypervigilance, the strange things that we pay attention to. And again, what we're not paying attention to, what's not getting our interest, right? That I'm a little naive in that, right? I don't even care about that. But it makes it possible for me to do that. Or when I say do that, do the hypervigilance, but I just had a thought in that. Maybe it's because I am too distracted in my hypervigilance. But that's a badge I earned, right? And I'm using that badge, and it's serving me. And if it serves me to show up here in a little bit of cooperation, right? Because that cooperation is those amazing insights that I am picking up from people that I might and probably would never hang out with in a interaction. Like, you wouldn't see me at the Emmys or the Academy Awards. Maybe in a one-off to have in the experience, because we all know Cindy loves experiences. But I'm not your party girl on Friday night. I'm not your BFF to go out for coffee on Saturday afternoons, right? I'm not going to have you over for dinner on Sundays, right? But it doesn't mean that I don't care, that I'm not interested, and I don't want to have those interactions that, right, is important in my evolution, right? In all of our evolutions. And lots of us, when we spend a lot of time on our own, we forget, right, that we're not the only people in the vicinity, in our vicinity, even. And that's probably where, right, we should be starting, right? But to spend a little bit of time with my sisters. But I understand also that things come across my path for a reason, but at the same time, things don't come across my path for a reason. And I have to pay just as much attention to that as I do the other part, don't I? Because I sit in the middle of two extremes, and, you know, being new to the party, it's going to take me a while to untangle those wires, to recognize, number one, what did I pick up? And number two, what did I pick up? Right? Right? And untangle that mess and really take a look at those choices that I made. Right? I made the best choices that I could in the moment. right? And that's what it was, right? Depending on the moment. Those are the tools I picked up along the way. Grateful that I stumbled across mindset, right? I'm so grateful for that because otherwise I wouldn't have gotten to learn about boundaries. I don't think those topics would have even had an opportunity to come across my path because I wouldn't have been able to get to the prerequisite of the lesson before that one, right? And it's in the movement, and we all get to make those choices, right? I made that choice. And I'm grateful that I have not pivoted as of recently. Pivot is another 54 powerful word that has been on the table of conversation for myself. Um, but it's in my own choices. And sometimes, like I said, we only have to make a little 45-degree adjustment, right? And then we could avoid all the pain and agony and struggle because we've kind of looked ahead a little bit to the possibilities. Like dominoes, maybe. Like foreshadowing, maybe. Like fortune telling, maybe. But in my naivety, that's a hard word for me, is it important for me to understand the messages, the movement is getting to me, the way I'm reading and in my hypervigilance, right? It's a good pace for me. And, sometimes we don't need all that other distraction from what we're really supposed to be working at. And that's something I do have to remind myself, right? I've been in the lessons. I've been in the conversations, even if it was just in my own head, and have a little giggle with myself when I hit that hit that live button, right? And I'm giggling because I got in by the skin of my teeth in my own commitment to myself, right? That things are going to change and I'm going to bring in a little bit of change into my life. But the idea is to bring in a little bit of change because I'm like where I'm at right now. I like the topics that I'm on. I like the leadership that is kind of giving me my insights and helping me to make a little bit of movement for myself without triggering me, right? Right? If you trigger, if you, in your coerciveness and knowing what my triggers are, right? And you decide to use the guilt, the shame, the jealousy, right? Those little things that are just underneath the surfaces that you think that are just under the surfaces. We're just kind of, really, really. And you should be really saying really, right? Because you might be the most amazing, smartest, full of insights, just gonna stuff my tool belt full of all kinds of things that I will get use out of. But because of those triggers, right? Because of that little bit of reading the energy and, right, seeing where it's coming from or what it's up to, right? That I'll move away from that and those insights will be lost, right? And it's not because I'm not supposed to have those lessons. It's just in the moment, right? Because of those set boundaries for myself or those set boundaries you set for yourself, we just cannot connect in this moment. And this is the way I like to look at it. This is the way I do look at it. And, it serves me. And sometimes in needing to do baby steps, was in a conversation, was actually in a lesson, it was a lesson that I took in today. Sometimes it is the way we look at it, the way we see things, the way um, we perceive things. And if we tell a different story to ourselves, maybe we can change the story a little bit, right? Because if there's one thing I do know, I'm supposed to make a different choice. What that different choice is, I have no idea. But I suspect when it comes across my path, I'll know it and I'll make that choice, right? That different choice. And maybe I've made that different choice already and I'm already on my way, right? Okay, let's get off that side branch, get back onto the main branch, you guys. If you want to pop in Sunday and hang out on Chatters Live with my crew, I have the most amazing crew, right? They chat more than I do, and it's a good time, right? Normally, this would be a show and tell week, but you know what? Maybe I'll show something in one of those scores that I picked up. Maybe that's a good idea in show and tell. Maybe I'll still have show and tell. That's a good idea. Good thought. Look how creative I am in the moment. Okay, you guys, have a great night. If you want to hang out Sunday, amazing. If not, I'll see you Monday.